Greetings, my wonderful students. Today we will discuss the three branches of government of the United States. First, the legislative branch. It has enumerated powers that are specifically listed in the Constitution. 5 of them deal with economic powers, the ability to levy taxes, coin money, borrow money, regulate commerce, punish counterfeiting. Then there's also 7 that are provided for defense, punish piracies, declare war, raise and support the armed forces, call the militia, organize the militia, provide a navy, and regulate the armed forces. Other powers include the ability to pass laws to naturalize citizens, establish a post office, secure patents and copyrights, establish courts, govern the District of Columbia. And then there's the Elastic Clause, which says Congress has the ability to make all laws that are necessary and proper to carry out its expressed or enumerated powers. Congress then and now. The first Congress was in New York City. 31 bills were introduced that year. Today, an average of 10,000 bills are introduced to Congress every year. Being in Congress used to be a part-time job, but today members of Congress live and work almost year-round in Washington, D.C. The executive branch has vague constitutional powers. The framers wanted a strong executive to enforce the laws of Congress, and they distrusted direct elections, fearing mass movements could take away property and liberties of the people. Article 2 states the executive power shall be vested in a President of the United States of America. This phrase has been interpreted to allow the President to fire officials in the executive branch, make agreements with foreign nations, take emergency action to save the country. Specific powers. The President is the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces and the state militias. He appoints the heads of the executive departments with the Senate's approval. They can pardon people convicted of federal crimes or reduce their fines or jail sentences. They can also make treaties with the Senate's approval and can appoint ambassadors, federal judges, and justices of the Supreme Court with the Senate's approval. The President also delivers the annual State of the Union address to Congress. They also call Congress into special session in cases of emergencies and meet with heads of states, ambassadors, and other officials, commissions all military officers of the United States, and ensures all laws passed by Congress are faithfully executed. The presidency then and now. Presidential government was a new idea in 1789. Washington's actions set many precedents. Early presidents did little actual work. When President John Adams moved to Washington, his presidential papers filled only 7 boxes. Today's president's days are timed by the minute. The president often meets with officials late into the night. The judicial branch, the jurisdiction of the federal courts. The U.S. has 2 different court systems, the federal courts, which gain their power from the federal constitution and federal laws, and state courts, which gain their power from state constitutions and state laws. Every court has the authority to hear only certain kinds of cases. That authority to hear a case is called jurisdiction. Jurisdiction in federal courts is determined by what the subject matter is and who is involved. The federal courts then and now. In 1800, the capital moved to Washington, D.C. The architects forgot to design a building for the Supreme Court, and so they met in a small chamber in the Capitol. Early justices traveled the country listening to court cases. This was called riding the circuit, and many justices actually hated that job. In 1891, the modern federal court system was created, and in 1935, the Supreme Court got its own building. The President as legislator. Now, the President proposes much of the legislative agenda that Congress considers. The President controls the bureaucracy that enacts the details of the law that Congress passes. President versus Congress. There is much conflict between the President and Congress. Over time, the President's power is increased. The Supreme Court decides disputes between the branches on a case-by-case basis. The Constitution gives Congress the power to limit the jurisdiction of the court. Congress is reluctant to use this authority, however. Some Supreme Court decisions require that a president enforce them, and that was an issue during the time of Andrew Jackson. And that is the end of this slideshow.